River plays a dangerous game of chess to remove Dikhan from power, and Ruth must stop a distraught mother from trying to escape the compound with her daughter. We're going to have a very heavy focus on the synopsis for Tyler Perry's Ruthless, Season 5, Episode number 4. And there's a reason for this, and we'll get to that much later, but for right now, let's get into it. Dikhan is eager to please the highest, doing whatever he commands him to do, fulfilling sexual fantasies with a woman that he also happens to be in love with, by the way. And he's happy to be back on the highest good side. And I guess that he no longer suspects Ruth of sleeping with him this season. So I don't know, last season Dikhan damn near lost his head. Almost got his head chopped off because he thought that Ruth was sleeping with Dikhan. But this season, they're all sleeping together, so go figure. Now, part of the reason that Ruth was so upset when she left the infirmary is because, if we remember, her and Dikhan agreed to keep the highest calm. With a level head, remember? They sort of made this pact. And I mean, yes, of course, she was upset that the wounded soldiers were killed for no reason. But when she saw that Dikhan reneged on the pact, this fueled her anger even more. The last time that they had to deal with this was when the 7 escapees got away and the highest caught up with them in the woods and beat them all to death with a baseball bat. And this is when they both agreed to somehow manage his anger to keep all the death from happening. But instead, Dikhan was contributing to the highest madness. So yeah, that pissed her off. And Elder Mother is in the infirmary losing her marbles once again, as if she's fascinated somehow with meeting the Raku one day. Right? And the task to keep the highest calm is very risky and it's dangerous, which brings me to River. Now, in the midst of all of this, River had figured out that Dikhan suggested that the highest used him, right? To quote unquote calm down, to tame that violent spirit. And after this, Dikhan was effing with him when he came out, right? After he had been sexually tortured, beaten, and abused. And this is where River had to use his head instead of bitching, moaning, and complaining. He remembered what Joan used to say to him, to do whatever he had to do to stay alive. So he began playing these mind games with the highest, kissing his ass and stroking his ego. He wanted the highest to know without a shadow of a doubt that he was loyal to him and willing to do whatever it was that he needed to do to please him. And River is the reason that George got to walk around the compound now without his maker stick, because River put him up to it, right? But we don't have to worry about George's maker stick being gone. Elder Mother's gonna stitch it right on up, just like she stitched up Dikhan's arm. He'll be all right. Hell, she may even go into the punishment trailer, pick it up, and sew it back on for him. Knowing Elder Mothers, that's what she'll probably do. Because if River would not have said anything, had he kept his big mouth shut, then George would still have his maker stick and Lewis's eyes would not be gouged out. I guess River figured that he had to sacrifice their body in order to make his plan work. And the only other time that the highest cut anything off is when Brian was on the camp. He cut Brian's fingers off down to the nubs. So we've had our fair share of the dismembering of body parts on the show. And as River lay in this fetal position after God knows how many rounds of whatever with the highest. And this is sadly becoming the norm with these two characters, very repetitive and very predictable. Seeing the highest in a chipper mood the morning after, again, very typical. So with River using his mind parts instead of his body parts, he pretended to be angry, very angry at George and at Lewis because they kidnapped him and they took him away from him. He expressed that he wanted them to pay for what they did to the highest. And this turned the highest on. He was like, I don't think I've ever seen this side of you before. I'm going to honor your request and allow you to watch while I punish them. I don't think that River expected for the highest to go as far as he did in the punishment trailer with Lewis and George, but the plan had already been put into motion. The plan for him to get the highest to realize that River and he are just alike in a roundabout sort of way. So he's thinking, okay, things are working in my favor. He's punishing George, he's punishing Lewis. So the mission was accomplished. Well, part of it anyway. And after he saw that this manipulation tactic was was working for George and Lewis, he decided to take it a step further and work the same play by throwing Dikhan under the bus. Now, after he ran into Dikhan in the yard, when he was effing with him, telling him that he was being used and that this was only the beginning and just making him feel completely worthless while he was in so much pain. So after they got back from Lewis and George body party, River poured on the fake charm and started bashing Dikhan's leadership. He decided to play chess with Dikhan's head at this point, saying that it was a shame that they had lost so many soldiers and guns, George and Lewis being Dikhan's top men. This poured on the suspicion as well, saying that they had Dikhan's ear and they should have been vetted better. He started quoting scriptures. Then talking about how Oliver was Dikhan's right hand and on and on and on. And then he randomly threw in that Dikhan helped save him by sending the men after the car and then talking to the FBI. He told the Hyas that he heard him talking to him. Now, this is where the Hyas got really interested. See, River is throwing shade and compliments at the same time about Dikhan so that the Hyas wouldn't get suspicious of the hating that River was giving Dikhan right now. And then River closed the coffin by saying that he may have been talking to the FBI about the Hyas surrendering. And this is all that River wanted. Checkmate. And this is what we call master manipulation. And I guess it took River, 5 seasons to realize that he was in a yard full of mixed nuts. That's all he had to do was think. Just because he's got to be the smartest one on the compound at this point, right? I mean, he was going to school for entertainment law, so that says a little something about where his headspace is. Because if we think about it, I mean, it really did make a lot of sense that Dikhan's leadership the past couple of seasons has been questionable and lackluster at best. And the Hyas warned Dikhan to always tell him everything and to not leave out any details, no matter how small or unimportant they are, right? He wanted to be sure that he was made aware of it. And this is something that we've seen before as well. And this is part of the reason that Dikhan got on the Hyas bad side to begin with. And now here Dikhan is doing it again, withholding information. And his excuse is always the same, that he didn't want the Hyas to worry about anything. And Dikhan should have learned his lesson last season that tactic and excuse is no longer working. Even though Dikhan disclosed the fact that Manny spotted a news van outside of the gates, he failed to tell him about talking or not talking to the FBI, because we remember Dikhan never said anything to Desiree. But whether he talked to her or not, the fact that the Hyas knew nothing about the call was enough to get him to call him to the pavilion and strip him of his power, which now becomes one of the most humiliating moments in Ruthless history, in my opinion. The second part of the synopsis reads, and Ruth must stop a distraught mother from trying to escape the compound with her daughter. After Ruth came from the aftermath of the slaughter scene that Dikhan created, she ran into the same situational plot, but with different characters, different players. Sister Alex has an axe and she's ready to chop down the door with this axe to take her daughter. Ruth took the axe, trying to calm her down. Then they went into the trailer. She's still trying to calm her down. Alex went on to explain how she thought the compound was a peaceful place. Yada, yada. Again, same plot, different characters. She later then told Ruth that she overheard River in the infirmary talking to Joan about money and the account numbers, and that she wanted to hold this over River's head by saying that if he doesn't agree to help them get the kids, that she's going to tell the Hyas. Ruth doesn't think it's a good idea, even though she knows that every word of it is true. And I truly hope that the goal for this character, Alex, is not to get them kids. I mean, get them and do what exactly? I mean, we've seen this over and over and over again, enough to know that it's not going to end well. All she's going to do is put herself and those kids in more danger. And she really needs to be careful, because some kids don't give a damn about their parents no more. They don't want to go with y'all. They want to stay right there and fight and play with them guns and all hail to the Raku. So she needs to be careful with that. Oh yeah, and she told River that he better find a way to get all 3 of those kids, Olivia, Callie, and Tavia. Lord have mercy. Somebody come get her. What is River supposed to do? And the episode ended with the Hyas questioning Dikhan about the FBI calling, and he was holding Dikhan's face with the ick hand, right? He was holding his face with the same bloody hand that he used to cut George's maker stick off. See, he wouldn't have gotten any blood on his hands at all had he just called me down to the set and I could have held it for him while he was cutting it. Yeah, I would have held it. But honestly, y'all, this was the grossest ish I've ever seen in my life. I was completely disgusted. This is why it took me so long to put this video. I was like, ew, like... I couldn't keep watching that and hearing that. Oh my gosh, that was just horrible. But Dikhan didn't have anything to say. He slowly disrobed, gave his black power clothes to River, and hung his head in shame. End scene. And maybe y'all caught River in the background gloating. He was very happy that this was happening. And there were a couple of other subplots where Andrew and the Sheriff Conley chit-chatting in the cell about nothing. Keys trying to lick Desiree's kitty cat, and Usher board number 1 and 2 hating from outside the club because they can't get in to see their loved ones. No, they were really upset because Dikhan sped up their trip to see the Raku, and they were pissed about that. So yeah, good people, that's it. That's it for this video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. You know I'd appreciate it. And if you're a fan of Tyler Perry's Ruthless, go ahead and sub to the channel for more videos just like this one. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, you guys, on this episode of Ruthless TV, where I'm bringing you more than just a recap. And I'll see you on the next one.